Awesome. All right. Joe, I just wanted to confirm, just your surname is Saunders. Just that's how you pronounce Saunders. Yep. Cool. All right, great. Joe
And it's actually
Saunders. Yeah. No, go please.
Wheel is how you Greer's last name.
Awesome.
Guil, yeah, Guil,
Real. All right.
yeah, yeah,
All right. Well, I
yeah.
mean, hey,
The
look.
R's are as if you're a 2-year-old with a speech impediment. That's how it works.
Well, I mean, like people get my name wrong all the time, and I'm always just like, look, it's completely phonetic. It's Zoheb. There's nothing, there's nothing crazy in there. And there's nothing silent. So, yeah. All right, let me get into this. All right. Joe Saunders, Alex Greer, congratulations on the film, The Penny Black. And look, I got to say, I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. It's absolutely riveting. And look, this is a question that I never kick off an interview with because it's just it's a little cardboardy, cardboard cutout question. But, considering the premise, considering what The Penny Black is about, I really wanted to know, uh, it's about the origin of the film itself. How did you guys come to be involved in the movie, and why did telling this particular story interest you guys? Because this is not something that you can complete in a year or like a couple months. This is a long term story you guys are telling. So yeah, how did you guys get into it?
That's an interesting question looking at it, in retrospect, because if you had told me, and Alex too, probably, that if you guys start this, it's going to take 6 years, I don't know if we would have done it.
Yeah, no.
Probably. Maybe if they said, and it won't cost you very much, maybe we would have, that would have changed our answer. But no, when we started, this was just meant to be a really short shoot. Like we met Will, or I met Will at a bar, or sorry, I met Will at a brunch, and through Alex, and he told us this crazy thing that happened to him. His neighbor gave him $500,000 or bag of stamps worth $1 million, and then was left town for 2 weeks. And we started filming then. So we thought he was coming back, and it was more of a curiosity for me just to like film. And plus I didn't know if Will was really telling the truth. And it was just interesting to go over and see these stamps and interview Will. And he proved really interesting. Like I'd known him a little bit before, I had seen him out. And so I knew he was kind of like a quirky guy. And he always came off as being really smart. But when I put the camera on him, he was like, I don't know, there was something really kind of captivating about who he was and how he was performing for the camera, and put that on top of this crazy story. And I think that's what kept me interested during that initial shoot. And then obviously when his neighbor didn't come back, we just kept filming. And there were so many unanswered questions that we just kept filming. And every time we would uncover, an answer to something, it would create more questions. So we just keep filming, and we just kept doing that for 6 years. We could still be filming, really. We just had to end it.
There's so much more story we could have still gone into. I mean, we had an idea planned out for this a while back, that we would make it a sprawling like internet based series around these ideas of falling into different rabbit holes, because every stone we seemed to overturn led to its own rabbit hole full of entire feature length documentaries worth of material. So like we could still be out there following Bonnie Collins' story right now. There were like a number of crazy stamp collectors that we interviewed that had their own stories that we could have been following too. But yeah, at a certain point, Will even says it in the movie, like this thing needs closure.
Yeah,
You need
well,
to end it at a certain point.
that's what I was thinking. I'm just like, how did you like? I mean, this isn't a question I have like in my little script or anything, but like, how did you guys, I guess, compose yourself and not, pull the strings that were being, like presented to you? Like, how do you keep? All right, let's stick to Will's story. Let's not go down any of these rabbit holes because, like, man, I would just be dying to go down every rabbit hole that was presented to me, to be honest. So, yeah, that's crazy that you guys were able to keep on track like that.
It was difficult to keep on track. I mean, it was difficult to you know I learned how to make documentaries from NFL Films, and NFL Films, National Football League, American Football, and their kind of creed was like fly on the wall, just like don't involve yourself. We're just like giving a lens to the audience, the football fans. And so that's how I learned how to make documentaries. So this was a real struggle for me in that method because it was being shot linearly. Like we were watching this unfold as it was going, and it wasn't like me being able to prepare questions to then interview somebody about something that's happened that we have existing archive footage for. It was all unfolding as we were going. So, Alex and I, just because we were in the danger of the moment oftentimes, or because we were in the intrigue or the mystery or whatever was captivating us as filmmakers while we're watching this, like we had to involve ourselves. Like it began with as much separation as we could from Will as he was doing this, but as the movie progressed, there was no alternative other than Alex and I step in and start pulling those strings a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely have a question lined up for that actually, because I mean, one of my favorite, I want to talk about the how you guys decided to tell your audience the story, right? So one of my favorite documentaries of all time is Brian Fogel's Icarus. That just blew me away. Obviously, won the Oscar, and that follows a similar sort of narrative structure where everything's kind of like being unveiled as he goes, as he's shooting. Um, and I definitely think the Penny Black echoes that. So did you guys? Yeah, you guys made a conscious choice to tell us a story in a linear fashion, the way it was being revealed, um, as opposed to a documentary, a more traditional documentary where we had all the information and the benefit of hindsight. So, was there ever a conversation where you're like, let's see how this plays out, and let's get us whatever information we have, and then make the documentary? Was there ever a conversation like that?
I don't think there was ever that conversation. I mean, I think we were, as we were going, after a year of filming, Serial came out, the podcast.
Yep.
And listening to that and going on that ride was so much fun that we started kind of seeing our story as something like that, even though that is more traditional kind of interview talk about the past type setup. But the feel of it happening in real time and moving and the excitement of it and the tension, and like we really liked that, and we really realized we had something really unique in the fact that we were following the story from the ground. And we're watching movies like Catfish, and Icarus hadn't come out yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were thinking this movie is we're following this action as it happens. Did we ever have that conversation of like going? I mean,
No. We always saw it as an asset from the get-go. We in our earliest pitch materials too. We always emphasized the fact that we're on the ground with this story. We're watching it unfold. Like the audience gets to be witness to instantaneous decision making and following the story in its most organic fashion.
That's easily more exciting. It's
totally more exciting. Yeah. So we saw that as a huge asset. Like we loved that we were on the ground as this was unfolding, especially given the nature of the movie where, lies seem to build on lies, on building on lies. But it became a liability at a certain point, most definitely, when we made this thing for no money, absolutely no money. And we, tried to raise funds over the course of production, and, we were successful in certain points, unsuccessful in other points. But as we were pitching it around, everybody wanted to know what the ending was. And that was a huge barrier to us getting financing or us getting early distribution. Was people wanted to be sure that something was going to happen at the end. Something in particular was going to happen at the end. So being on the ground floor ended up becoming a bit of a liability at a certain point. But looking back at the way the movie cut together and the nature of the story that's being told, I don't think this would be nearly as intriguing told from hindsight. Like it's a gift to be on the ground floor with a story as it unfolds.
Yeah, watching it, like the way that you guys already made it. I don't think there's any other way you can make this. I mean, it's just, again, you don't get to have audiences sitting on the edge of their seat if it's made if it's made with the benefit of hindsight. So I think you guys did an absolute, you knocked it out of the park. And Joe, this is something that you kind of like already got into, but what's interesting to me and something that I rarely see in documentaries is the filmmakers intervening or getting involved in the events of the movie. So here, for instance, you've got you guys speaking to Will's girlfriend, or you're out there searching for Roman. What was the conversation behind getting involved in the event? And did you guys ever kind of like take a step back and were like, whoa, all right, we don't want to get involved with this. Let's get Will to deal with this, or let's just not deal with it at all.
I mean, I think it came out of frustration and a little bit of anger, because at one very specific point in the movie, everything kind of points to Will might not being honest with us. And at that point, we felt a little bit maybe taken advantage of, or maybe just a little silly that Will was not on the up and up, and we started questioning everything he had been telling us. And at that point, the documentary, like, Will had been our protagonist up until that point, and at that point, he became our antagonist. And so we had to step in as the protagonist. You have to follow somebody's journey in this. And Will's journey is really exciting and interesting and multi-layered, but our journey was also exciting, interesting, and multi-layered. And it was an organic decision. Like, it wasn't something that we planned out, and it wasn't something that we really debated that much about. I mean, we debated a little bit, but once we started questioning Will, there was no choice but for us to talk about it and let the viewer on the inside know that we were talking about it, because he was just so, shady.
Yeah, the goal was always to have Will be as active as possible, and driving the story as much as possible. But as you know, at a certain point in the narrative, that became impossible. And so it was just a choice of necessity that we had to get in there and move things ourselves.
It's kind of it's kind of one of those cautionary tales of like, once a dollar figure comes into it, you start to question people's motives, you start to question how people react to things. So yeah, no, I totally understand. And look, like, making a movie like this, you're often dealing with the unknown, and there were times when I personally was worrying for you guys and for Will, like, you know, like for you guys' safety rather. Like, was that a constant consideration for you guys? And how did you guys work to mitigate any risk involved? Because you're dealing with, I mean, you're throwing around terms like Russian mafia, Russian underground, like talk to me about the safety of the crew, safety of you guys, safety of your subject Will. What was going through your heads when all of this was playing out?
Producer.
Uh, Looking back on this, I just watched this again a night or two ago with some friends, and like, Joe, what were we doing? Like, what? Like, looking back on this, I put such blinders on my sense of reason and rationality in order to follow this story. Like, the story was good, and we got such a good taste of it so early on, and I think we took everything into account. Like, we had a board up in our office that had every possibility of everything that could go wrong. We got production insurance at a certain point too, and like, in order to get cleared, we had to submit to the insurance company a list of all of the terrible things that could possibly happen, so they know like what they're insuring. So like, we had a list, there's like a list that says like, oh, we catch up with a shady character, and it turns out that they in fact are shady, and we get stabbed, or we get shot, or we get our family in trouble. Like, we had to submit this horrible document. We called it the document that our mothers would never see. But we took all of that stuff into account and planned accordingly, and I think just disregarded like the stakes of it. I mean, Joe, you have a daughter now. Like, could you imagine staking out a potential Russian mobster again?
I don't think my wife would let me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think there was a certain amount of, I think to be a filmmaker in general, you have to have a certain amount of delusion. Like, this is a tough job. There's a million people trying to do it. You have to have delusion that you can be successful in this industry. And I think that played in our favor during this documentary. I mean, I think, you always shift your priorities in terms of, how they motivate you. And I think the priority for Alex and I for much of this was to get the best footage and get the best story possible. And lower on that priority list was safety. So we knew at times we were putting ourselves in danger, but you convince yourself of things. You convince yourself like, he's probably not in the mafia. He's probably, just some guy and this is a collection he's had for generations within his family. He just wanted to safeguard it with a neighbor. And then maybe he got deported, like maybe he wasn't on the up and up in the United States and he got deported and he's just missing. And maybe it's all that. And so you convince yourself of those safe stories in order to put yourself in danger. But yes, looking back and knowing what we know now, it was a lot of times I think we should have been a lot more afraid than we were.
Well, I mean, definitely my heart rate was on edge. I mean, especially the moment when, I don't want to give any spoilers away or anything like that, but like, there's a moment when Will reconnects with Roman, and that moment in particular, I was genuinely like my heart was racing, and just that there's just that tension. That's the kind of tension that you get from like scripted dramas, like A Quiet Place or something like that. So you guys did a phenomenal job, and I'm glad you guys came out unscathed. Yeah.
That moment in particular, that was, like, we like to talk about that and say, oh, it's such a coincidence. I mean, it was just the perfect shot for all of that to happen in, right? And you think about it, you're like, wow. A lot of people like question the validity of stuff like that in this film because it seemed so perfect. Like, how could it be that perfect? But you have to remember, like, Alex and I were staking out that particular apartment, that guy, for weeks, trying to get his patterns to know where he was going to be. So we knew that he liked to park his car there, and we positioned our car to like be able to get that shot.
Mhm.
Will around looking out the window, and hopefully that's where he would come in.
Yeah.
Worked out so perfectly, and and terrifyingly, because even when you're watching it, you don't get a sense of how close they actually were to us. If you're thinking about a road, we're parked on one side of the road, they parked on the other side of the road. There's only room for like 1.5 cars between where we were shooting and where they were. I mean, it was, yeah, my heart rate was racing during that too. I'm surprised I kept the camera steady.
No, you did a phenomenal job. And look, this is something that this is a question that I really kind of want to pose to you guys. And Joe, again, you've already partially answered this, so I'm wondering if you've got like a cheat sheet or something. But about Will and how he becomes somewhat of a unreliable narrator. He becomes your unreliable protagonist. Um, he's also a bit of an unknown, a little bit like Roman, but not to that particular extent. So, when it's unfolding that Will might not be exactly forthcoming to you guys, how did that change your guys' direction rather? Like, because you've got your documentary focused on these stamps, but how did you guys not decide to follow Will's I guess uh potential for dishonesty, rather, like go down that road?
Well, I think early on we decided to follow that. Like, once he told us that his dad was a con man, that really changed everything for me. Because the stamps are interesting. Obviously, the Russian mafia, or potentially Russian mafia neighbor, clearly interesting. But that all seems out of a movie somewhere. You get excited about that kind of stuff, mystery, stolen stamps, all that stuff. But I'm always more engaged and targeting the emotional, what's going on emotionally in the story. And that's something I could never really pinpoint because Will is so kind of, he's a little slippery, he's a little wishy-washy.
Pretty fluid. Yeah.
You can't really nail him down. So I was, when he said his dad was a con man, like everything made sense to me. Like I was like, oh, okay. And then when we got further into it and we learned that his dad was not, and when he told us, he was kind of like bragging about it, which is, I think his way of kind of, with his own blinders on, of like talking about something that was his past, trying to act like it doesn't affect him, but it clearly does. And that became the journey of this documentary. Really is his relationship with his father, and how does somebody who had a con artist for a father that was arrested when you're 6 and deported out of the country, left his family in debt and in ruin, like, he hates his dad. How does that affect somebody put into this situation? So we really started following that story. And I was really, and Alex too, we were really much more interested in seeing the resolution to that story and seeing how the son of a con man like takes the situation. Because most people, everyone, you talk to, tell the situation to, the first thing they say is, oh, sell the stamps, like sell it, like they're yours. But Will didn't want to do that because he has this kind of odd, like, gravitational pull towards honesty, or at least being seen as honest. So
He's got a strong moral code. Yeah.
Right. But does he, or does he want us to think he does? And you don't know, but it's interesting, and you follow him to see what decisions he's going to make and how his father's relationship with him affects those decisions. And that was something that was really interesting from the get-go, from an emotional side.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like it definitely, once we discovered that there's a missing book, and it really kind of like just brings a whole new dimension to the film. And you guys must have been, I guess as filmmakers, you guys must have been, I don't know, a little excited. There must have been like a little part of you that was excited to like, oh, hold on, we've got a new dramatic turn here. Although it's probably the worst thing that could possibly happen in the world, one of the stamp books going missing and what the repercussions of that were. As directors, as a director and as a producer, filmmakers, did you guys have that little spark of like, this is kind of exciting, isn't it?
That was the entire emotion. I think. I think it was flipped in proportion.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Joe should speak to this, but I thought it was a gold mine when it happened.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly was, another question, which this whole story is full of, and finding the answers to was the whole journey of this thing. And but yeah, it was yes, it was really exciting and
Totally. Yeah, no, totally. Joe, you talked about this already a little bit, but I mean, with Will and delving into his background, his backstory. I mean, like it's traumatic. I mean, it's probably traumatic for a lot of people. So I'm wondering, when you have a documentary subject, how far is too far to prod? Like how are you kind of standing on the edge, but not going too far overboard into making your subject close off entirely, or just getting straight up angry at you for digging too deep? Because again, it is a traumatic background that he has. So I'm kind of wondering how you guys, don't cross that line.
It's an excellent question. Will, in all the interview subjects, I've never been a part of something like this, where your main subject is also your kind of antagonist. So this was different for me, and the way we handled that was when I asked him very personal questions, because he's better friends with Alex. Alex would always step out of those shoots just because there's a familiarity there. If you have friends around, that maybe you won't say as much, or you'll say it differently. And so I would talk to Will one-on-one about his dad, and I would always tell him, like, if there's anything you don't want to talk about, feel free not to talk about it. Same thing you did when we were opening this podcast. It's like, speak freely. If you want me to use something, I won't use it. And that's really the way to garner trust with when you're recording anybody. And but I was really sensitive to it. Like, that trauma is real, and I think he had some blinders on about how that trauma was affecting him in his late 20s, which is when we started filming him. And I think through the course of this documentary, like, the biggest compliment I got about this whole movie was, we were doing one of these interviews and Will was involved, and he said that this movie really helped him figure some stuff out about his past, which, like, I didn't think was going to happen. Like, I thought he was cemented in his ways and that's just how it was going to be. But it seems like he's done a lot of introspection after this experience, and has come to a better place with all of that trauma, which is great to hear. But all this to say, yes, I was very sensitive about it, and would give him plenty of space. And he often said, I don't want to talk about that, or that's done, we're done, or I'm getting hungry, let's go get something to eat, was usually his out. But yeah, he was tricky. We really had to keep him happy, bribed him a lot with dinner. Yeah, there was that. Wrangling Will was one of the hardest things in this whole doc.
Joe's really good, just like interpersonally too. Like, you're really shrewd, I think, at like knowing how to motivate people. And I feel like you have shadows of like your dad's coaching in that regard. Like, you know how to get people to move forward, basically. Yeah, that's it.
No, that's awesome. I mean, like, sometimes there were, definitely moments in the movie when I was like, how did, because he is talking about traumatic things, and I was wondering how you guys were managing him kind of like behind the scenes to be able to talk about such traumatic things, because it's not easy. And being dumped in a situation where you could potentially follow in your father's footsteps, unfortunately, that must bring up a lot of things. So yeah, I think you guys absolutely knocked it out of the park with Will. Look, we're going to kind of like start closing it off here, but I kind of wanted to ask what you guys next projects were, because having spending 6 years on one project, on one film, I mean, how do you follow that up?
You don't do it again.
Lessons learned.
You find shorter stories to tell.
Fair enough.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, we've both followed it up in weird ways. I'm in law school right now, so that's how you can follow that up. Joe and I also work on we created another a show that's in a totally different universe than this. It's called The Traffic Show, and it's a talk show that takes place in strangers' cars that I hijack, and then set up a studio inside and get to know a perfect stranger while they're sitting in gridlock.
That's awesome.
It's fun. Yeah, I recommend checking it out. It's thetrafficshow.com to use this for another plug.
No, please, plug away.
But we're also we're adapting this into a fiction feature, which Joe, I'll hand it off for you to talk about.
Well, I mean, that's about as much as we have concrete right now. We've had a lot of interest in turning this into a fiction feature, so we're working on that.
That sounds awesome. I mean, even just the premise of it just sounds amazing. And look, you guys have an open invitation to come back on to talk about that when that's all solid. Alex, I don't know why you go to law school. I'm a lawyer myself, and man, like, I don't know why you do that to yourself.
It was a bad quarantine decision. Some people decided to bake sourdough, and I decided to be a masochist.
Yeah,
So-
well, I mean, look, I'm still in debt, and that's fun. That's fun for me.
Yeah, I'll see you at the bar.
Totally, totally. No, it's good that I got to converse with a future colleague, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Look, this is something fun that we like to do with our guests. We're called Midnight Double Feature. That's the name of our podcast. So, my final question to all of our guests is, what's your favorite double feature? You had a Sunday afternoon or something, and you just kind of want to sit down there with a couple of movies. You had some time on your hands, if you ever found any time on your hands, by the way. What 2 movies back to back do you guys sit down with?
Gremlins popped in my head.
Oh, nice.
Gremlins and
A little bit of Joe Dante.
I'm a huge Joe Dante. I was gonna say Explorers, but I didn't want to go too Dante.
Yeah.
I'll say Gremlins and The Game.
Ooh, Fincher. Wow. Okay. Nice. That's awesome. That's a good pairing. Alex, how about
Let's
you?
see. I think whatever I'm doing in life, I always would rather be watching There Will Be Blood. So I think I'd start with There Will Be Blood, and then if I want to chase it down, because it's a little, it's a rough movie. I think I'd chase it down with Airplane.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
My brother.
Wow, that sounds perfect. Actually, I've
That
never
actually
said that out loud
does.
before.
Dude, that actually does. I mean, like you've got the heavy drama, and then you chase it down with some amazing comedy, dude. Me and my brother
Yes.
are always like forever quoting Airplane. We're always quoting "The white zone is for loading and unloading only," and it's just always, it's brilliant. But look,
Yeah,
guys,
it's just lines
yeah.
on lines on lines. Sorry, go.
Totally. No. Look, guys, just again, congratulations on the film. It's absolutely, again, riveting from start to finish. You can feel your guys' passion for the subject coming through so plainly. And it's such a massive achievement. I've been recommending it to everybody for the last couple of weeks, having seen it. So look, it is available now on demand. You can stream it on iTunes and a whole bunch of other places. Yeah, guys, look, unless you have anything else to say, you want to head out of here?
I want to ask one question, because originally researching the Penny Black, just Googling it.
Yeah.
A bar in Sydney or somewhere in Australia kept popping up. The Penny Black. Is that a popular bar out there?
Not that I've heard. That's interesting. The Penny Black bar. No, I don't think so. I mean, like, look, I consider myself to be pretty social. And unfortunately, I haven't been social in the last in a year or so because of COVID. But the Penny Black, I'm gonna look it up, because I think when I looked it up as well, when I looked up what the Penny Black was before finding out that it was a stamp, I think I vaguely remember a bar coming up, but I don't remember it being in Sydney.
Might have been somewhere in Australia.
Melbourne. It's in Melbourne.
It's in Melbourne. Yeah, don't worry about Melbourne. Don't go there. It's fine. Don't worry about
It's on Sydney Road.
Oh, there
That's
you go.
Uh-huh.
Oh man, look, they're our rivals to the south. So yeah. But look, guys, thank you again for jumping on for this interview. This was great. This was a blast. Highly again recommend everyone check out the Penny Black. It's amazing. And Alex and Joe, you guys again have an open invitation to join us here at any time. To talk about your next project, just to riff about movies. Alex, if you want to talk about law school, let's go for it.
Good. Not on Zoom though. We need a safe space for crying.
Yes, we do. Yeah. Joe, again, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys adapt your next project into a feature film as well. That sounds awesome. So again, thank you so much for joining us, guys. This was awesome. I'll catch you guys next time.
Great. Nice meeting you. Thanks.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Thank you, Alex. Have a good one, mate.
Take care.
Bye.